the broadcast. And the webinar started, and the webinar is being recorded, and we have our attendees starting to come on in. So welcome to everybody today. This is our Back to School with iClicker webinar. We do this once a year. It's a really fun, interesting time to get together. And we are going to be using iClicker during our session today. So this is a really nice time, especially if you're new to iClicker, to experience what it's like to use iClicker as a student. So if you look in the chat, you can see I've already put this link here, and you can just click on it and you can watch the webinar in one tab, participate with iClicker in another tab if you like, or you can go ahead, add this link, click this link using a web browser, add this course to your iClicker account, and then you can also use your phone to participate along with the webinar. This is a web link, so it has to go through a web browser. And Teresa, I'm going to pop that into the chat again right here, because for whatever reason, chats don't persist in Zoom if you join after. I don't think it's my favorite. Here again, I'm throwing it into the chat, the link, it's right here. Oh, I'm sending it to hosts and panelists. So fun, these Zoom things. Let me make sure that I'm sending it to everyone because that's a lot more effective. All right, there you go. Now you've got your link right there. Thanks for being patient, everybody. And I'm not going to ask an iClicker question right away. I'm going to do a little housekeeping so that you can keep onboarding in the background. So hi, I'm Natalie Dougall. I'm a customer success specialist here at Macmillan, and you are at our annual Back to School with iClicker webinar for fall 2023. I cannot believe it, but here we are. A little bit about my background. I've been with Macmillan for 7 years, and if you've done a lot of work with iClicker over the years, you have heard from me, seen me. I love iClicker, and I really love how our professors use it so creatively. And before coming to Macmillan, I spent 13 years teaching comp and lit at community colleges. So this is really fun to be on the other side of ed tech and to be able to connect with these really cool professors who are using iClicker so creatively. So that's who I am. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to go over this agenda, and we're at that wonderful introduction stage of our agenda. And I always like it when people introduce themselves, so I'm just going to go ahead and pass it off to how things are appearing in my video. So Jennifer, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Ripley Stueckle. I am a teaching professor at West Virginia University. I teach, I run the non-majors biology program, and I've been using iClicker since I started in my position over 15 years ago. And so I think, well, at least a personal response system since then. I think I've only been using iClicker for maybe 10 to 12 years. It's been a while, so. Okay, Justin, your turn.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Natalie. I'm Justin Shaffer. I'm a teaching professor in chemical and biological engineering at the Colorado School of Mines. I've been a higher ed STEM professor for about 11 years now, and I've been using iClicker pretty much the whole time. So I use this in small classes of 30-ish all the way up to, well, I used to teach at UC Irvine, 440 at a time. I'd use iClicker, and I teach a variety of classes: introductory biology, anatomy and physiology, as well as chemical engineering courses such as introductory thermodynamics.
Awesome. Yay. And part of my job that I enjoy so much here at Macmillan is connecting with these peer consultants that we have who are really here to connect with other professors. And so if you've ever wanted to talk to somebody who's using iClicker in their classroom, who's like maybe specific to your discipline, that's something that we can do for you. So today we're starting with our introductions. I'm going to do a quick overview of iClicker, and I'm going to do a new feature showcase. And so if you came to this time to just see how iClicker works, you're going to have that. If you're an advanced user or a longtime user who wants to see what's new and shiny, you're going to get that too. Then we're going to hear from Justin about writing modern iClicker questions, and we're going to hear from Jennifer about using iClicker in those big classes. And then at the end, we're going to have my absolute favorite time, which is Q&A. So there is an actual Q&A section here in Zoom. I would love it if you put any questions you have about iClicker or what we're talking about into our Q&A, and we'll have a nice, robust time at the end where you can ask any type of question, pedagogical, technical, practical, whatever, and we will try and get you what you need. So let's go ahead and if you haven't joined our iClicker session at this point, it'd be great if you did. Here I have a screen grab of the join code that every single iClicker course has generated for it when you create a new iClicker class. So this is a fabulous feature that's been out for more than a year that's really simplified the onboarding process. And one of the things I especially like about it is a student doesn't have to be registered in your official course to join your iClicker course using the join code. So this makes it so students who are trying to add your course, but maybe there's only 2 spots and you've got 3 students vying for it, they can go ahead and participate with iClicker on those days until you've solidified your roster. So I'm going to ask our first question. This is a target question. And what this means is that you are going to touch the image, the part of the image on your screen that corresponds with how you're feeling about fall 2023 right now. So you might be feeling a little bit confused about it. You might be feeling angry about it. You might be feeling calm. So just go ahead, touch where on the image the correct response is, and then click send. And I can see you guys are picking this up really, really fast. And I've already got 22 responses. This is great. We've got 56 participants today. I know not everybody is participating with iClicker. Know that you can join our iClicker session at any time. It takes, a minute to set up an iClicker account. And I'm going to be using this throughout. So it is actually worth it to add on. It's nice to get that student experience. Okay, I'm going to close this at the 1 minute mark. So make sure once you've touched on your image, you click send to lock in your answer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop it at the 1 minute mark. Let's go ahead and look at our results and see how people are feeling. Okay, this is, I'm going to be sending all of these slides as after pieces for support. So you can steal this slide if you want to from my deck. We can see people are feeling, I love all of this. A lot of people ticked dizzy. That's super interesting. I wasn't going to think that that would be something there. We've got some people who are worried, happy, excited, all kinds of things. All of these feelings are super valid. So I'm just going to put a correct box around all of them, click save, and now my whole audience is told, hey, your feelings are validated. So if you're new to iClicker, let me tell you a little bit about how iClicker works on just a really basic level. So first, instructors are able to ask students questions, and students are able to respond in very real time. So you can see when I started that poll, I was able to just watch how many people were responding, and I could be responsive. I could give you 30 seconds, I could give you a minute, I could give you a minute and a half. You also can use iClicker with whatever tools you're already using. So here I'm using Google Slides. Later I'm going to pass it to Justin, he's using PowerPoint. And you can use iClicker over a YouTube video. Maybe you show your students a video and you say, this person's going to mention a date. When that date comes in, put the answer into iClicker so I can tell you're paying attention. And guess what? They will pay attention. And students are able to respond with their mobile devices, but if you have been using iClicker remotes, the old school technology, you are going to be able to continue to use it and continue to maybe have a place that's a mobile device free place. that is definitely an option, and we're going to keep supporting that forever because they're awesome. And there's no need for you to preload questions or answers in any kind of machine. And we especially are not interested in owning any of your intellectual property. And so iClicker is really nice because it just goes on top of whatever you're already presenting and captures your screen, sending that question to students. It's really, really easy. If you're a user of Achieve, iClicker is an included part of Achieve. And we've really wanted to support the dynamic use of iClicker in classes. So we have these really cool instructor activity guides that are fully developed in-class activities that include iClicker questions throughout. And these are really well developed. I really enjoy how these things are put together, especially because they show you like Bloom's taxonomy and where it falls. They are often like multi-part exercises, and they also, always connect to larger learning objectives. So I'm going to ask you all, I want to take the temperature of my room, and I want to see what kind of iClicker features you've used in the past. So I'm going to use multiple answer, and with multiple answer, you can respond with more than one correct answer. So go ahead and let me know which of these iClicker features have you used in the past. Okay. If you've not used it at all, I filled this up. So you have used iClicker polling because I have demonstrated the iClicker polling to you today. So you can go ahead and pick polling. Someone said it hasn't refreshed on their browser. You can go ahead and try backing out of the session and going back into it. One of those turning it off and turning it back on again situations. Okay, and I'm gonna let it go for till it's 1:15. I always like to end on a 5 or a 0. I'm gonna click stop. And here again, I'm gonna click on my results. So everybody had experience with polling. We've had some people who've had experience with iClicker assignments. With iClicker assignments, you can give students a pack of polling questions that they can answer asynchronously. And this is really great if you are teaching a class where part of your students are attending live, and then you have a certain portion of students who are attending via video later. So you can be like, hey, you can still play along with these polling questions. iClicker attendance. This is a secret question because by joining our polling session today, you actually check in for iClicker attendance as well. iClicker attendance is fabulous. You can set it to auto run. These are students who have probably been using Fitbits for 10 years. They love being able to automatically monitor their own activity. So I highly recommend setting up iClicker attendance to auto run at the beginning of the semester so that students will be able to have that information from day one. iClicker polling is the most popular use of iClicker, and it's the one that students really enjoy. And we also have iClicker quizzing, which we have just enhanced. I'm going to tell you about that. And then I have a small portion that have also recommended iClicker study tools to students. Sometimes students have not played around a ton with iClicker outside of class, and they're not aware that iClicker questions can all be turned into either flashcard packs or practice tests for outside of class. And students really like it. It's not only a nice way for them to study, but also they're actually remembering parts of your class every time that they look at an iClicker question. That's pretty dynamic. So for 2023, we are premiering a couple of really cool new features. Number one, we now have iClicker Groups, which is now out in beta. Beta means that we are still testing it. We're still going to be improving it, and we really want your active feedback. So if you find anything interesting in groups, or if you have ideas about how it can be improved, we want you to let us know. And then we also have iClicker pre-created quizzing. This is a way to upload a pack of iClicker questions that are beautiful to look at, beautiful to interact with, and students are able to move through it at their own pace. They can go back and forth, and you can also mix up all of the quiz questions so that students aren't doing all the same questions at the same time. I'm going to demo both of those things. And I really want to emphasize that iClicker remotes are still living on, but we are retiring the iClicker Classic software. So there's this version of iClicker Classic software that does not connect to the internet in any way, shape, or form unless there was a time you could use it with mobile devices. But at this point, it is a software that we are retiring. It is not one that we are going to be supporting after January 1st, 2024. So if you are here, you are an iClicker Classic user, never fear, you can continue to use your remotes. You're just going to get a more modern software in iClicker Cloud that we use iClicker Classic to develop. And so everything you love is going to be there, and we can help you with your transition. So be sure to upgrade to cloud for fall 2023. It's really easy and lovely. All right, so now we're going to get into our quick discussion of iClicker groups. It's in public beta, which means anyone can use it. And you must download the latest version of iClicker Cloud to be able to use this groups feature. Okay, so here's how it functions. You go to iClicker.com, log in as an instructor, and you click on the class that you want to talk about for your groups. So here, this is a sales meeting that we just had. You might see your sales rep on this list. And so I had this nice big list of people that I could then turn into groups. So I just went down to my People tab, and you can see here I've got this little button that says Groups, and it's a beta. So I went ahead and I clicked on that, and then you get this nice window that pops up, and it says, how would you like to create your group? So this is really nice because you're able to determine how you want to create the groups, and you can have them automatically done. Even though I had 121 students, it was really easy to do this. Or you can manually create groups based on however you want to go ahead and do it. It's a really easy kind of drag and drop experience when you do it manually. So here I just did the auto grouping, and I even used the auto names. This is really easy to modify later. So if these people want to be the Thunderbolts later, you can go ahead and change this name super easily. It's really nice too because I can just go in here and grab these email addresses and go ahead and email just this one group when I want to. Very visually easy. And if I have new students who add over the semester, it's really easy to add the groups, add group members as you go on. So now I'm going to talk about pre-created quizzings. Sorry, I'm going to go back right here, one second. So once you have your groups, you might be like, what the heck am I doing with it? I want to draw your attention to the fact that we now have a different kind of question, which is called a group question. So what's really cool is when you have a group event for your students, you go ahead, and in this instance, I have not broken up my class into groups, so I think I just confused my iClicker program a little bit. So here, I did not set it up before class, and I have to do it before class, so I can't pop you guys all into groups. But if I had that, I would be able to move my group things around, but also I would have a new polling question option here, which is a group multiple choice question. And what happens is the students then get into groups, and they have to come to consensus on what the correct response to something is. And it's a consensus building activity. And it's really nice because it gets your students to get up, move around. They can see what group they are in on their phone. It gives them a really easy way to connect with people physically. And then, you know, you can ask them all the different types of polling questions while you're there. You could even sit there and have them do a group quiz together. But this consensus building question type that we have now is really interesting because it really focuses on getting the students to all come to an agreement. So I'm excited to see what you all do with that question type, especially during the beta program. And I'm betting we're going to hear from our peer consultants more in the future about how they're using this new question type as well. So now I'm going to talk about iClicker quizzing. This is a pre-created quizzing feature that is now available. And if you've used the assignments feature in the past, it's pretty similar to that. Again, this requires an update to the latest version of the iClicker COD software in order for you to use. So it's always nice. We try and make it every time you have to update your software, you get some fun, cool things that come along with it. So make sure to upgrade your software because you want to be able to use groups and you want to be able to use quizzing. So here again, I start with these pre-created quizzes by going to the iClicker website, logging in as an instructor, and clicking on the name of the course that I want to make a quiz for. So here I am in our class. I clicked on the quizzing option over here, and you can see there's this nice button over here that says create. Once I click it, I just have to go and put my information in here about how I want to set up my quiz. Do I want to share results with students or not? And then all that I need to do is go in here and drop a PDF of the questions that I want to use. So the way that I do it is I just go ahead and I go into slides, I write my questions up, I go to save as, or I go to download is what Google calls it, and then I go download as a PDF, and then I just upload it here. And you can see here, I've made a really small quiz for us to try, and I'm just asking 2 questions with 3 possible answers. And then I hit that create quiz button. So let me go ahead and give you that quiz. So this is what it looks like from the instructor point of view. So I already set up my quizzes. I can still do a quick start quiz here. This is not going to be as elegant as this though. So I'm going to give you all a really quick quizzing demo. And don't worry, it's 100 points. There's only a few questions. I made them each worth 50 points. So let me go ahead and start this quiz. And you should now have a quiz on your phone or in your web browser. And you're able to go through these questions. You can answer the second question first, answer the first question first. I didn't randomize these questions because randomization with 2 quiz questions is not that exciting. But you can see as an instructor, I can see how, oh, look at that. Isn't that nice to see how many students are actually done with the quiz? If you ask, hey, how many people need more time? Everybody's going to ask for more time. Okay, and somebody's saying, can results be linked to the Canvas course gradebook? So your students, you have the option of in iClicker sharing the results with them. We don't have an option where those results then go back over to Canvas. In big part is we want to encourage students to use iClicker as a study tool. There's so many cool things over here that we want to make it so that they can, for example, study these questions as part of a study pack of flashcards. So let's see, I've got 31 answers. Something also cool with iClicker is I can go back and I can actually look at my roster and I can see I have 47 people here. So if I'm really doing a quiz and I'm like, hey, I've got like 15 people here who haven't answered, maybe they went to the restroom. If you haven't answered yet, I'm going to close this quiz at the 1 minute and 30-second mark. Okay, all right, I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I'm going to end my quiz. And because this is a quiz, yeah, I can go ahead and I can look at my results, but it's going to be like, hey, do you really want to show everybody what's going on? So it looks like we've got a lot of maybe, which is fine. I can go ahead and answer this right here. I can go ahead and I can see some people are not going to use iClicker groups, and that is just fine. It's not applicable in every classroom. And then we got a lot of people who are like, yeah, I'm going to give this a shot. And then for question number 2 with are you going to try iClicker quizzing, we've got, again, that split between yes, no, and maybe. But it looks like everybody who's here probably is going to try at least one of these new features, and that's pretty exciting. Thank you guys so much. That was really fun to do. So now I'm going to go ahead and I am going to hand my sharing over to Justin, since you've got, let's see. Are you able to take the share, Justin?
Yeah, trying right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's
Yay.
okay. And
excellent.
Hopefully everyone can see the full screen now.
Yeah, and I'll run the the iClicker, so we don't have to change sessions. So yeah.
Okay, great. And yeah, I've been trying to answer some of the questions, Natalie, in the Q&A. I hope I'm answering them correctly.
Cool.
So feel free to double check my work. All right. Well, yeah, thanks again, everyone, for having me. And thanks, Natalie, for that great introduction on some of the new tools. So what I'm going to show you now over the next few minutes is just how to write what I call some modern iClicker questions using all the bells and whistles that this platform has to offer, right? So these are going to be used in class one at a time to get student feedback on what they know, maybe thoughts on different issues, a variety of things. So what I really want to emphasize again is that with iClicker nowadays, it's not just multiple choice. You can do so much more within that. And Natalie started our session today with that great target question. So keep these in mind as you're developing your courses for the fall and for the future. And feel free also to reach out to me anytime if you have questions or want to workshop some ideas. Natalie will be sharing these with you as examples, and feel free to share these with your colleagues or anything you'd like to do with them. So again, types of questions that you can do. Multiple choice, we all know that one. Numeric answer and text entry. So those are actually some of the basic options that you can use in the iClicker format. But I want to show you basically how you can exploit the text entry option to do a lot of other things, such as matching, multiple select, ranking, and then we'll do the target question as well. And again, that one is you have to have the web app, the iClicker Cloud, to do this one. If your students still use the physical remote, they can do the other ones as long as they have the iClicker 2 remote, but they won't be able to do target questions. And then I'll end with one that I've come up with I call predict, click, depict. It's kind of a three slide sequence that will help you answer questions. All these examples I'm going to show you come from my own courses, and I'll have the course name at the bottom and then the question type in the top. And again, I'll give you a little context as I do them. All right, so multiple choice first, just this is my introductory thermodynamics course, bread and butter, right? Here's a question, give students some time, and then multiple choice, bam, one correct answer there. So just multiple choice from a list of text. You can do multiple choice from the graph though, right? So here's another one from thermodynamics. So I have 5 states of water listed on this diagram, and I ask them what's state 2. So they have to answer based on that. And again, the answer here would be B. We're not gonna actually do these clicker questions now as a group. I'm just going to go through them again as some examples as we go. If you have questions as we go, I'll try to answer them in the chat, or it might be better if I wait till the end, but either way, we'll get them answered. Multiple choice, another format from a picture now, right? So if we want to do this from an image, so those of you teaching in the biological sciences, labeling is often important. So which bone's the palatine bone here? They're going to pick A, B, C, D, or E, and answer in this case is E. This also could be turned into a target question, which I'll show you some of those later on. All right, so that's your multiple choice basic settings. Now it's numeric entry, right? So you can click in numbers. Here's one of ideal gas law problem from one of my chemical engineering courses, and they have to actually click in a number answer. You can have decimal points, you can do the numbers and things you need there. Whenever I do questions like this, and I consider this a best practice for iClicker, is I show them a little logo like this. That way students know it's not just a regular multiple choice. Rather, now they need to do text entry or numerical entry. And this is the logo that shows up on the iClicker too when they're asking that question type comes up. So just a little marker that I tell students from the first day class and onward. If you see this, it's more than multiple choice. Okay, so that's numerical, just enter numbers as it says. All right, another text entry. Okay, but now we're actually looking for text, like an answer. So then there's a lot going on here, but this is amino acid sequencing for introductory biology. And I want them to type in the 3-letter code of the second codon. So the actual answer here what I'm looking for is SER. So they would look at this DNA sequence at the top, and they look at their chart here, and they figure out, oh, it's SER. And so the answer I'd want to see come up on the histogram is a bunch of SERs. So that's the answer I'm looking for. That's a way to do text entry. You can also ask them an open-ended question, describe this process in 3 words, or what's the single word answer for something. So text entry can be useful there. All right, but now I want to get a little more creative with text entry. So again, there is no matching question type in iClicker, right? If you go to iClicker little menu and you drop down question type, you're not going to see matching. So these next few I'm going to show you use the text entry option, but you'd be a little more creative. And I want to give credit to Adrian Williams from UC Irvine, who helped me think about these, almost a decade ago when I was starting using this software. So matching, right? So I have a bunch of terms on the left and a bunch of descriptions on the right. So I want students to put in a list of answers in the correct order from top to bottom. So this would be the answer I'm looking for, defa beseg, right? So this is on the histogram, you'll see, and usually for this, it's some basic terminology from their pre-class reading. So I'll probably get 70% or so correct. So you see a nice big bar for defa beseg. So that's a way to use the text entry, but to do matching, okay? All right, so you can tweak this a little bit more, right? We can do this for multiple select too. So again, just with the text entry option, you can have students put in multiple answers. Now, Natalie showed you the actual multiple answers question option, which is possible. But if you wanted to do this just from the text entry option, you can also do this. So you'll have students say, okay, well, which of these values are you looking for? And I'll tell them there could be more than one answer. So you could type in AB, ABC, ACD as a string of characters, right? In this case, A and B are the answer. When these types of questions come up, I always encourage students to do them in alphabetical order. So that way the histograms are grouped. And it's also, I love it when students are very grammatically correct. They'll do A, comma, space, B, comma, space, right? And I'll tell them, no, we don't need to do spaces and commas, just put them all together. But this is a way, again, to use text entry to do multiple correct answers. You can also do this for multiple true and false questions. So here's another one. Now I have 3 statements. Now, instead of saying to them which ones are true, A, B, or C as a group, give me all 3 as a string of T's and F's, right? So you can do multiple select here. So if the answer here in this would be TFT, so I would like to see that as a string. Students would type in TFT. And notice I give them a little instruction here as well too, right? So enter the responses in a single answer text string. So sometimes if they're using the remotes with a big class, so like when I teach intro bio for 400 plus students, I do questions like this. But if you remember on the remotes, you have to go up and down to find your letters. And T's are kind of far down the alphabet, right? So they're going up and down and it sounds like a big classroom full of cicadas. They're all clicking, all the T's to get to the T's. So I've kind of, if you have a big class like that, you can change this to be like A is true, B is false. So you don't have to wait for all the clicking to go through. Although it's kind of fun to do it at least once to hear all that clicking sound. All right, ranking. This is another one that is not a question type, but you can do with the text entry option, right? So here's a scenario about a protein signaling pathway in a cell. And so there's 5 options here, but just look at the red. That's the key part here. Not all structures may be used, and some may be used more than once. So students are going to put these in the correct order that this protein will pass through. So it's ranking, but it's using just the text entry option. So here's what the answer is actually AEDE in this case. So students would have to click in that string. And just for context, this question always gets lots of discussion. They always forget one of the options is correct. So it leads to a robust discussion from the class when you have ranking questions like this, especially when you have what's in red, where not all of them will be used and some could be used more than once. But if let's just say you had 6 items and you want them all to be ranked from top to bottom, no problem. You can use the text entry again for that. Make them rank all 6, just using each one time. Okay, target now. So this is, again, what Natalie demoed with those different faces at the beginning. I picked worried, by the way. This is one for physiology. So when's the mitral valve close on this figure? And we already demoed this as a group, but you click on the screen, whether it's your phone or your screen, and you can see where the student answers pop up. You can select which ones are correct or not from the instructor app afterwards. This one I think is really fun, more for a discussion-based conversation. And I got this idea from Derek Bruff. Used to be at Vanderbilt, now he's at the University of Mississippi in the teaching center there. You can do these quadrants for feelings, right, or attitudes, right? So where does synthetic biology fit in? Ethical versus unethical, positive versus negative impact. Click all over the map based on where you're feeling, and then you can have a nice class discussion. So you can use these types of target questions or multiple choice or any format for that matter for non-content related, right? To get student attitudes, student affect, student feelings that you want to discuss as a group. Okay, lastly, I call this series Predict, Click, Depict. The reason I do that is because it's a 3-question sequence. So in the sciences, I really try to emphasize data analysis and experimental design, hypothesis testing. So here's an example of a graph, and we've already talked about the content for this. So now we get to the point, okay, here's an experiment that researchers did, and this is a screenshot from an actual journal article referenced below. And what do you predict would happen, right? So at this point, I'll say, okay, take 30 seconds, think about it on your own, draw in your notebook. What do you think the graph would look like? So that's the predict phase. Then I give them 4 options, right? So now 4 options. Now the click phase comes in. So, okay, so you thought about it. Maybe your graph matches one of these. Hopefully it matches one of them. And you're going to click in which one matches best. So pick the one you want. Okay. And then finally depict, we show the actual figure from the journal article, the actual data, and then we discuss, well, why is the answer the answer? Why was it A in this case? And so again, this is a way to get really engaged students more in their thinking, achieving higher levels of Bloom's, more active learning and engagement here by having them first predict, then click on their answer, and then depicting, showing the proper response from, in this case, from a journal article. You could do this with a figure. You could do it with a picture of a painting, whatever you wanted, right? You could do lots of things here, and then actually discuss it as a class. So some, hopefully what you got from this is just some creative ways to use the iClicker platform to go beyond not only multiple choice, but beyond what you might think about numeric entry or text entry, and do things like ranking, matching, multiple true false, and some other creative ways. And again, even though I showed you all science examples, I've done these in classes from, again, as low as 20 or 30 up to over 400. You can do these across college in any discipline you want. And I think, again, the sky's your limit for being creative and how you use these different question formats.
I was trying to unmute myself. Thank you, Justin. I have one fairly specific question that I think you can speak to pretty well. How onerous is it, how difficult is it to grade those text questions, especially if you're in a big class?
So I don't, is the short answer. So I don't. And the reason I don't is because I'm a strong believer in best practices for any personal response system is based on attempts, but not correctness. The reason I say this, and I'll give an anecdote and then I'll back it up. So when I used to teach at UC Irvine, I taught, or my colleagues taught developmental biology, and they taught two sections of it, one at 12 o'clock, one at 1 o'clock. They used iClickers and they did questions in class for correctness, so for points for the day. Some of the 1 o'clock students would start going to the 12 o'clock lecture just to get the answers to the iClicker questions. And then they go to the 1 o'clock lecture so they could click in and get the correct answers guaranteed. Is this a good use of their time to sit through the same class twice in a row? Arguably no, in my opinion, but it just causes lots of anxiety from the students. So in general, and I'm kind of going beyond your question there, Natalie, I would argue not to ever, unless you're doing quizzes now with the new quiz feature, to actually grade correctness on clickers, rather do them on just attempts. And you also doing, 75% of the attempts for the day. That way you don't have to worry about, your phone dying, can't log in, internet issues, things like that. However, if you were going to grade them, it will be a little more difficult for those text entry ones because there's so many permutations. You can obviously set the correct answer to be that one string, and hopefully you get, again, most of the answers are in that one bin, but now the students who did maybe different, if it's multiple select and it was supposed to be ABC, but they did ACB, obviously that's correct. You could set that ahead of time knowing there could be permutations, but then some students do commas and spaces. And so you will have to go through and take a little bit of your own time to edit those and account for those different deviations in text entry. But it would not be onerous. I think maybe 1,000 students might be, but in typical class sizes, 100 or a couple hundred or less, it shouldn't be too bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. So I am going to hand the reins over to Jennifer. And we have more questions for you, Justin, that we are going to get into when we get to our Q&A time. But I want to make sure that Jennifer has her time. So Jennifer, let's go ahead and hand this over to you. And probably you first want to introduce yourself, and then I will drive your question deck.
Okay, thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Justin. So I teach in large lecture classes and smaller focus classes, and I'm just going to be talking about my large lecture classes today, which are 250 plus students, and how I use iClicker. Now, in these classes, I only use the multiple choice function. My students are freshmen, they're non-majors, these are very large classes. And so I will show you how I just use the multiple choice function in different creative ways. Because just to get the students just on that playing field, then they don't have to worry about all the technicalities of all the different functions and how they're trying to answer the question. So one thing is when I enter the classroom, I always have a clicker slide right up there when I start. So Natalie can flip. And so as soon as I get into the class, I load my PowerPoint. My very first slide is a clicker question. You can even see that there's some instructions over on the side in red that the students need to do while they're getting into class. But this allows my students to become engaged and focused before class starts. And this lets them also know when class is going to start. So if students are trickling in, I can set that timer to 20 minutes. I can set it to 45 seconds or whatever. So my clicker questions count down instead of counting up, so they know how much time they have. And it allows them to either hurry up and get in and settled and go, or if they have a little bit of time, they can come in a little bit quieter. And also, if my students come in and I'm already lecturing, they know class already started. And so they'll be a little bit quieter and more respectful of other students. It also allows them to either review material we covered in last class so they remember where we were, or it allows them to preview. If they were supposed to do the reading ahead of time, it allows them to preview, oh, we're going to be moving on from proteins and now we're talking about fatty acids or something like that. Okay, next slide. I also, so unlike Justin, I do grade my clicker questions, which again is why I use the multiple choice, but I also give points for participation. So each clicker question for me is worth 5 points. You get 3 points for just answering it, whether it's right or wrong. You get that extra 2 points for getting it correct, because otherwise my students won't even consider it. They'll just click anything just to have an answer up there. So for my students, I find that they need to have at least 2 extra points. You know, it's only 40% of that clicker question to give them the motivation to attempt correctly instead of just doing it. So again, it's not worth a lot. Overall, the clicker questions are only worth 10% of the course grade, so they're worth very little. But students don't do that math, so they don't know it's worth very little. Like each question's worth probably 0.000% of their grade or whatnot. But it's a good way to make them motivated. So since I do grade the questions, I have these questions that I call survey questions. And survey questions are where students get full credit no matter what their answer is. And it may be for this aspartame assignment, they had to spend 24 hours documenting how much aspartame they consumed. So I kind of get the class results this way. Or for instance, when I start my evolution unit, I'm in West Virginia. We have a lot of strong opinions about different scientific topics. And so this is the chance I give my students to express their views about evolution. And then I go directly from this clicker question to telling my students that evolution is a theory. Theories are supported by data, and that we're going to learn the data in this class. We're not going to debate evolution. And so that's how I use these survey questions. And I also use survey questions, Natalie, for the next one, to answer questions that are a little bit more difficult or challenging. So for instance, let's do this clicker question as a group. So we'll start it as multiple choice. And these are the little bit more challenging questions that I want my students to think about and take a little bit extra time with. So if they know that I'm giving them a particularly difficult question as a survey question, they know to take a little bit more time with it. So I'll stop talking for a second so you can read and think. And you're not supposed to be intimidated. You're supposed to try anyway. No one, there we got a few responses. When you do these survey questions like this, and they're a little bit more difficult, when you pull up the answer, there's a lot of defeated sounds, lots of ohs and groans and so forth. So it makes them a little bit more fun. Okay, we'll let it run for a minute. So we'll close it at 60 seconds. I also use, just as an aside, I also only use the multiple choice questions because I'll grade them in class. So I mark the correct answer in class so students automatically know what their score is. Okay, so we're going to leave that up there. Natalie's going to flip to the next slide so we can see what the correct answer is and then why. So there I put the weights on there for you. The correct answer is D. I got one student who got it right. Yay for that student. And so that's where I would hear the defeated sounds. And now we see the weights, and we would discuss why together. So I'd have some students to do this. And I'll just tell you guys, since only one of you got it right. In the seed, we had our entire energy storage, right? We had all the materials, all the energy in there. And since the plants in number 3 did not have an input of a food source, right? There's no light, they can't make their own food. They are utilizing all the resources in the seed to build new materials and for metabolism to do that process. So they're utilizing those energy sources, which is why they're lighter. So now you know. Okay, the last little bit to tell you about how I use it in my large classes is I'll use a series of clicker questions to kind of make the students work themselves through a process. So in this case, we're talking about different types of cells, prokaryotes and eukaryotes, in the domains of life. So I would start with a clicker question based on differences in DNA, whether we're contained in a nucleus or not. Which do you think is older? Students would talk. So I always allow my students to discuss during clicker questions. They're supposed to work together. And they would say, oh, well, the simpler version, no nucleus, prokaryotes is older. So we got that. Then I would pull up the next clicker question and say, okay, this is called a phylogenetic trait. I'm not going to tell you how to use it. Just work on yourself. So they would figure it out working together that the oldest domain would be bacteria. It's down at the bottom. Great. So now they know prokaryotes are the ones that are the oldest. They know bacteria are old. And then I would put that third question up there. So what type of cell are bacteria? And they would be able to piece that together that they're prokaryotic cells. So just by doing those, I mean, maybe take me a minute and a half, if that, to go through those 3 questions, probably even faster than that. The students worked through that and put that together themselves. And I didn't say, bacteria are prokaryotes and they're the oldest. You know, I didn't have to do that very passive way of learning. I like for them to think for themselves. So those are some ways that I use iClicker in my classrooms. And I think that is it for my little bit there.
Thank you so much. Very cool. We've had such an active Q&A group going on. We've had everybody asking lots and lots of questions, and I'm like doing that thing where I'm like half typing the end of a sentence in the chat. So let me go ahead and hit the end on that. And then let me get into some open questions that we have. So I'm going to ask you to this question as professors who deal with this situation all the time, and then I can jump in and give the official party line if I have to. But for students who are not registered in your course and they're not certain about whether they're going to take the course and they want to participate with iClicker, will they still have access, or do they need to pay for access? How do you guys handle that?
WVU is amazing, and the entire institution has access. So it's a no-brainer. We use iClicker all over the place in all the classes, just about.
So you have a site license on your campus, which means that, you know, maybe the student technology fee pays a negotiated rate for every student on the campus to have iClicker, and they never have to worry about it. And then that's like the one that you use. Justin, how about you?
Yeah, we are working on a site license, which I'm super excited about because it's a heck of a deal. I mean, you work with your iClicker reps on this, but you know, it's a couple dollars per student per semester compared to what students are paying out of pocket. So, and I believe how most of the licenses are structured is they only pay for what classes and what students use them. So it's not like the university is footing a bill for the entire population, then only if a quarter of the professors use it, they're still paying for it. So it's like a kind of pay-as-you-go approach, which I really like. So I'm hoping to get there. Not there yet, but so what I've done in the past is, you know, if a student's not sure about it, what I always build in with clickers is a number of drops. So I always drop at least 10% of their days of class. So that way, if, you know, and I still have many students who use the remote. So if they forget the remote, the batteries die, or now if their phone dies or the internet's out or something on their phone and they can't click in, no big deal. You just drop some. It doesn't affect your grade. So that's how I would handle the first, if it's a week or two of class while students are still deciding. I think most universities are in that, 1 or 2 weeks you have to decide to add or not. So you're talking at most 6 classes, and that will cover those drops. Now, if they decide to join the class and say, okay, well, you know what, now I want to join the class, but I was here every day, you saw me there, okay, of course, I'll go back and still honor those drops for later on. So it's just, I'll take it on a case-by-case basis, but be as flexible as I can, and not penalize them for being up in the air early on about whether they want to pay for access or buy the clicker at the beginning or not.
Okay, awesome. So we've got a couple of good responses here. For instructors who are in other situations, here are a couple of ways that students gain access even if they're not officially enrolled in your course. If you are using iClicker as part of an Achieve course, all that you need to do for those students who aren't officially enrolled yet is share the iClicker join code with them for your iClicker course, and that student is going to be able to participate in all your iClicker sessions. And then once they are an official student enrolled in your course, their iClicker grades are just going to rush into your Achieve gradebook. Everything will be taken care of on the back end, and they're never going to be asked for payment. Now, let me just tell you, iClicker is $15.99 for 6 months of use, and that's all you can eat. That covers every single class a student is in if they have to pay upfront through the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. And I think they get a tremendous amount of value for that, and we're pretty competitive in the market as far as our price goes. So that's like the most a student is going to pay for iClicker. I also had a question about iClicker remotes. One of the things that we started doing is we started bundling our new iClicker remotes with a university-long subscription to iClicker Student and the iClicker Student app. And that's because we have instructors who still really like our remote, but that kind of technology is expensive. And so when students have to lay out the money for a single-use device like that, we want to honor their dollars and also say, hey, when you have instructors in the future who are using iClicker but not the remote, you can go ahead and switch over to the app. So if you have a student who has bought a remote and they bought it new, that should have come bundled with an access code. And life is complicated. There are all kinds of situations. If you have a unique situation with a student, reach out to your rep. Your rep can usually help smooth things out for 1 or 2 students in your class who might be just having a transition or something like that. Next question that I have is an iClicker question that's kind of persnickety, which is, I use presentation view in my PowerPoint, and I want to be able to look at my notes while I'm doing it. How can I make it so that I can look at my notes and project things? What do you guys do to make sure you're showing the correct view to your students with iClicker?
My classroom has it so that I have 2 computer screens. So I have one computer screen, like it's connected to one computer, but I have 2 different screens. So I can show on one screen my PowerPoint slides with the notes, because I do have that too, because I'll forget like stats and stuff if I have cool things. And then the other one is the student view. And then when I use the iClicker, it only shows the student view. It doesn't show my teacher cheating view, but that's a technology thing that's set up through the school. And since I teach in those gigantic classrooms, we have 2 screens for students and all kinds of, technology.
Yeah. Justin, how do you make sure your students see what you want them to see?
Yeah, I don't use presenter view, but I have heard it does cause some troubles with the multiple screen issue. I know you can drag your iClicker toolbar where you want, so that might be helpful to get around that. But yeah, you do want to test that to make sure, and where your screen is at and what you're sharing is what you want to see, what you want to be sharing. Sometimes with mirroring desktops or not, it can come out a little bit funny. So make sure you test this stuff out before your first day of class, whether you're teaching in person or hybrid or remote. Just make sure you always give things a dry run to make sure things come out. And you can log in on you can get the iClicker student app on your phone and log in with your instructor account, and you can go along as if you were a student. And that way you can test and say, okay, is this actually showing up how I want it to be? And so you don't have to have another account or another student there do it. You can do it all yourself to test things out.
That's awesome, Justin, because that is a lot of what I was going to say. And you can always set up your own just test iClicker account, and do your own test courses, so that you can do all kinds of junky stuff, and then you just delete it. Your students never see it. The other thing is like, if you're hearing about this and you're like, I really want to use this, but I could use some help, go to iClicker.com. There's a button that says demos and trainings. Click on that. And that's going to connect you with somebody who knows about the specific instance on your campus. They're going to know if your campus has a site license. And they're going to sit there, they're going to get you set up with your iClicker classes, get you set up with the software and ready to go on day one, which I think is really, really valuable. Okay, so we're in our last 5 minutes of our time together. Let me go ahead and I had somebody ask, if I want to give students the opportunity to answer a deck of iClicker questions as practice for an upcoming test, what's the best way to set that up? If I want to be able to have them do it on their own time and not require it, but maybe give extra credit. This is a perfect use for iClicker assignments. And with iClicker assignments, you simply use pretty much the same process that I did for the pre-created quizzing, where you just upload a pack of PDF questions, and then you can assign it to students, and they get a window of a few days where they can answer these things. I have another question. Let's see. Let's see. Someone is asking, students have to pay to use iClicker. iClicker is software where, it requires support, it requires people, it requires all this kind of stuff. And how else do we do this kind of stuff? We're not going to advertise for students. That's not a kind of a thing that we're going to do. But we have focused a lot on affordability. And one of the ways we've done that is it is a part of Achieve now. So if you are using Macmillan's Achieve platform, iClicker is included as part of Achieve. You just have to go into your gradebook, click Sync iClicker, and bada bing, bada boom, you now have access to Achieve for all of your students without an additional fee. But when affordability is a concern on your campus, we do have a lot of different solutions to it. The $15.99 number that I quoted you was pretty much the absolute most that a student can pay for it. So just something to think about. So let's see. We have a lot of questions here, and I'm not. Let's see, I am a lecturer who lives far from campus and only teaches 1 quarter per year. What's the best way to test that students are seeing everything correctly without being connected to the campus computer I use during class? You always have, I hated that part about teaching, when you'd have to fly into the classroom and kind of be like, is my computer going to be okay? Something that's super awesome about this one, and this is going to be the last question that I answer, we'll follow up with other things through email. But something that's really great about iClicker is there is a standalone version of the iClicker cloud software that can be downloaded even though you don't have permissions to do anything to that particular computer. So if you go to iClicker.com and you download the iClicker cloud software to ask questions of your students on day 1, you're going to be able to do that without having to have an admin code of any kind. So it's not, you can test it at home, you can try it on your own computer, but yeah, there is that kind of unpleasant first day thing that you have to go and do. And we would love to help you again, support you with that transition. Signing up for a training can be really nice because you can even test the system with the person who is training you. So thanks everybody for attending. This was super fun. Again, if I didn't get to your question, I'm so sorry. I'm going to follow up via email. And I hope you all have a really awesome start to the semester. Let's hear it for fall 2023. So thanks everybody. Have a really, really great day. Thanks so much for coming. Bye everybody. Thanks everybody. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end it.